Shalom, Israel. This is Brother Robert, a.k.a. Pastor Nobody, from the Fountain of Israel Bible Studies class. You can find us on thefountainofisrael.com or use the search box on YouTube and type in Fountain of Israel. You can also email us at foibiblestudies@inbox.com. Again, that is foibiblestudies@inbox.com. We believe the whole Bible is the truth and relevant to our lives today. Join us weekly as we feed the flock with the uncut word of God. Matthew 4:4 says, "Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God." So until next time, this is Pastor Nobody. Search the scriptures and prove all things. Shalom, Israel.
Yeah, buddy, this your boy LeBron Campbell, a.k.a. Bust the Bible Like a Rifle. I just want to give a shout-out to my man Sal Showtime. Keep doing your thing on Debate Talk for You, where everybody want to hear the best debates around the globe.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? How you guys doing? Welcome to another show. You're now listening to the Debate Talk for You Summer Special. Of course, I'm your host, Sal Showtime, and you know it's Monday. You know what that means. You know what that means, right? Usually we have the Relationship Challenge segment right here on Debate Talk for You Radio, and we appreciate the listeners out there that's tuning in via phone and via Skype. While down at that number, 319-527-6239. Everybody on social media land, we appreciate y'all for tuning in. I see people sharing it, on social media, sharing the show on their personal pages. We definitely appreciate that. Debate Talk for You is all about interaction. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to press number 1, and we'll add you in the conversation. Today's show is entitled, "Is Welfare Wicked?" All right, once again, today's show is entitled, "Is Welfare Wicked?" Of course, we're going to have the host of this segment, Muna Israel, break it down. What does she mean when she came up with this particular title in a few minutes. But once again, y'all, get your pen and pads ready, take down some notes. And, we're taking the summer special right now. It's going to be this the last week, actually, but it's summer special. And then we're going to return back on the air Friday, September 29th. That's right, Friday, September 29th with Season 8 of Debate Talk for You Radio. So make sure you tune in and support the brand and be a part of everything, all right? So let's introduce the special guest, though. Of course, we got to start off with the First Lady of Debate Talk for You, Amuna. Welcome to the show.
All right. Thanks for having me, Brother Sal. Thanks for having me. I was like, oh, we off break already? I was, chilling. But how's everything with you?
Yeah, everything is good. How's everything with you? What you been up to?
I've been giving my voice a break. I've been, off air and just been doing a lot of writing. Look soon. I'm gonna be having a novel coming soon. This is interesting. This is novel. I'm writing a novel, but that's kind of what I've been working on, just doing some writing.
All right, well, welcome back. Of course, we definitely miss you. I miss you. You know what I'm saying? And we doing
this. But it's
no doubt. So let's go to the next special guest. Of course, we're going to the home panel. I believe this is my sister right here, Mayana. I hope so. This 718. Is this Mayana?
Hello?
Hey, what's going on, Mayana? Welcome to the show.
Hey, shalom, Sal. Shalom, everybody.
What's up, Sister Mayana?
Hey, Muna.
All right. So what you been up to, Mayana? What's going on?
Oh, I am eyeball deep in like 30 books from the library, so I've been doing a lot of studying on the various topics that we discuss in the community. I tend to be much better at researching than writing so far, so that's pretty much what I've been doing. A lot of reading, a lot of researching.
All right, well, of course, glad to have you back on the air, you know what I'm saying? My sisters, no doubt. And I believe we have a special guest over here. Invited by Mayana, right? I believe it's Malika. That's her name, Malika.
Malaka.
Right,
I believe, yeah.
Malaka. There we go.
Yeah.
Malaka.
Yeah.
Hi, Malaka. Welcome to the show.
Shalom, everybody.
Yeah, I believe it. Mona reached
you.
out to Malaka, but yes, absolutely. I'm glad that she's here.
Shalom, Sister.
Yeah,
hello.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you guys for inviting me. I'm really excited about the opportunity to just hear your thoughts and share some of mine.
All right, so we're going to get this thing started as usual. You know, like I always say, take down your notes, get your pen and pads ready. Amuna, take it away.
What happened to Brother War? Is it War
And a
not in the building?
I'm gonna reach out to them behind the scenes. I'm reaching out to them behind the scenes.
Oh, you about to do, because you just slid right into the show. I'm like, hold up, I know it's been a week, Brother it's some
Wait a
team
minute.
members. We got you. All right, so thank you for that. Welcome to, we're on a summer break from the summer break, and the conversation is whatever we're going to speak about. Hopefully with these courses, I think we're up to like episode 34 or something. We don't want to beat a so-called dead horse, but we do want to take a look at different angles of the conversation and see whether or not we can begin to unpack these things and see where we're having issues with one another, and see actually what some of these doctrines are actually, what they mean in everyday translation. So today, myself and Sister Mariana is like, well, what are we going to speak about? I'm like, well, I don't know. She's like, well, I don't know. I'm like, well, and then, we having a conversation and start speaking about the widow. I actually saw this wild video, and I posted it about widows in a certain location. I wouldn't say all of India, but it was a certain location in India where they didn't honor the widow. Once your husband died, like you basically died with him. And it brought back to my remembrance when the Torah says, remember the widow, the fatherless, and the orphan. And the question is, what does that mean in today's terminology? And so when you look at today, it actually means the widow. A lot of times we look at single motherhood, and that being the only way in which someone will become a single mother is if the father or the husband died. But in today's space and time, we have a lot of single mothers who weren't necessarily married because of the way that things are going, but you still have this fatherless situation or this orphan situation. And so the question then came up, well, is welfare wicked? And as soon as we think of welfare, we think of welfare queens, welfare lions, and everything of this nature. But that's what we're going to kind of talk about today, because the Torah has an outline for a welfare plan. And is it wicked? Is it what we're supposed to do? Is it righteous? So we brought on Sister Malaka because she speaks to single mothers, and she has information in that area. So we're gonna kind of hopefully trace this line as Brother Sal goes and gets the brothers, because we always like to hear their thoughts on the matter. But I'm going to hand it over to Sister Mayana right now and let us know, since she was in the green room as we're thinking about this conversation, let me hear your opening thoughts on the matter, and then I'm going to come to Sister Malaka.
Well, I have to echo your original sentiment that when we were first told that we were going to be prematurely taking off our break, we were like, okay, well, what do you want to talk about? Well, I don't know. What do you want to talk about? So there was a lot of that. After doing that, like you said, we kind of went back and took the pulse of the people and saw some of the things that are that were at the time emerging as concerns. And there's a lot of talk about the abuses of welfare, the fraud of welfare, and the idea that women are possibly opting for handouts over husbands. And we wanted to go ahead and look at that, interrogate whether excuse me, I was running up and down the stairs, so I'm still trying to catch my breath. We wanted to interrogate to what degree that might be true, or in what degree it may be fictionalized, or maybe there's a type of mythology that's attached to this. And it seems, and when we looked at the scriptures, we can see that there is a correlation. We have a sort of built-in welfare system, meaning we are looking after the survival, and trying to assure that the people fare well, having this kind of welfare. And so we do have something in place for the poor, the widow, the orphan. As we often deride the fact that Christian churches or churches or organized religion will co-opt the tithing system and say this is something they want to receive weekly, but we know as Hebrews or as students of the culture, living the culture, that the tithing was never originally set up for the way that it has been monetized in these religious spaces. Instead, it was originally set up for the welfare of the Levitical line, because they didn't have any other type of employment. They weren't the recipients of land, and they were not charged with any type of at least not this particular type of labor. Their labor was different. So they received tithings from us and support from the other branches, and that also extended to an allowance for the widow, the orphan, the poor. And we're talking, and we have this language where we call our children fatherless, and I understand that is the language that we have adopted. But the fact is that we have, all of the children have fathers. It's whether or not these men are in place or actively involved. Mm-hmm. It's probably more accurately said that we have husbandless mothers than fatherless mm-hmm. children. And I think that that's an issue. And that's why there's so much conversation about finding husbands and becoming wise. Because, of course, we have to, as Emuno says, the children are the downline. The descendants, these are our downline. That first foundation is the parents. First, our parents, then us being parents, us being in our marital bonds, and then conceiving that downline, that descendancy. And we are looking to protect, rebuild, or reestablish that first or middle line where there's strong marital bonds. And so these are the things we want to look at. We want to look at how women are widowed in many ways. Usually, like Emuno brought out, sometimes we think of the death of the man, but the absence of the man, because death is the reason why the death is so significant is because there's an absence. His absence is what causes the detriment in the house. It is the detriment to the wife. So his absence, the fact that he's still living but in some other space, is still an absence for her. So there's a type of widowhood there. It's not a Hebraic or literal widowhood, but there is a widowhood there. I shared a brief video. It was a clip of a longer work where an elder, I think she was 93 at the time, was recounting her experience in the 1920s, early 1900s, 1920s, I want to say. And as a married woman, her husband left, presumably to go north to find work, as was the custom at that time. But he didn't return. He left her pregnant and left to find employment and never returned. And so she had to resort to welfare. She had to resort to the government assistance and for feeding her children. She had 7 children at this point and no husband. And she was married. So this idea of women intentionally seeking to be single or creating conditions to be single and then looking for welfare to supplement what they have chosen. I've heard a lot of conversations where the assumption is that the woman has chosen this condition and circumstance. So I think this is rather lengthy for an opening statement. So I'll yield the mic so that the conversation can move forward and we can explore some of the things that we've brought to the table so far.
Well, thank you for that. Lost time. She was like, I'm about to give y'all the opening statement for the last 4 years. Thank you for that, Sister Malala. We have now Sister Malaka with our opening statement on the topic, is welfare wicked? We're speaking about the widow, and you brought up a lot of good points, Sister Malala. I want to go back and touch on some of those, but we're speaking about the widow, the orphan, the fatherless, or the absentee father that we're faced with in modernity, as Mayana likes to say, that's a word, modernity. And so we're going to ask you for your opening statement, Sister Malaka. The mic is yours.
Okay. Well, I just want to start out by saying, for those who don't know me, don't know who I am, I personally have worked in the welfare system I worked in the welfare system for 10 years, and I worked in a program that basically was there to try and help women transition from being dependent on welfare into the workplace. And in working in that program, what I saw year after year was not that women were choosing welfare over men. What I saw was that women were not making decisions for their life, but just like things were happening to them. It's not that they were making choices. They weren't making any choices necessarily in the sense of, like, I'm going to choose to go to school, or I'm going to choose to, avoid having sex right now at this time of my life. They were basically just living out what they had seen lived out before them. I actually worked with some women who were third generation having received welfare benefits. So that's grandma, mom, and now them. And honestly, when the question is asked, is welfare wicked, that's such a packed question, because the only way I can answer that, having firsthand worked in the environment, is yes and no. Yes, in the sense that it can create a situation where a person, a family, can lose their way in terms of how to care for one another. And there's other reasons why I could say yes, but no, in the sense that there are some who really wouldn't be able to feed their children because there is the absence of providers in their life. I'm not going to say just men, but, just the absence of providers and providers. And, of course, that's the role that men are predominantly purposed to play in the family. And so I find that there is what's missing in a lot of the young women whom I met was a culture of marriage. There was not a culture of marriage there. A lot of the young women had never been up close to a marriage, had not been the product of a marriage, had not even been in the home of a married couple. There were a lot of transitory relationships, is what I'll call them. So, I'm not going to go on. That's just kind of my opening statement. My opening statement is, I think what's more wicked than welfare is the climate in which welfare becomes the chief provider in a family for generations. And with that, I'll yield.
Thank you so much. That's a powerful opening statement. You see, this is why we have these conversations. For those who may be new to this segment of Debate Talk for You, we have these conversations because we kind of come to a thought. We don't know how we came to it. Like Sister Malaka, we don't have necessarily personal experience. We may have acquired this experience by the way, or we heard conversations, and we form these opinions and thoughts, and then we project them onto people we may meet. And it's called, they're like, well, can't we come together? Because we're holding thoughts that we have never really fleshed out, so that we can understand that this is a multifaceted thing, like she said, yes and no. Because the person who is in need and has no provider and no provision, say that the men, this amount of men are in jail, and this amount of men are homosexuals, and this amount of men are in the grave, and then at the same and say that men represent protectors and providers, and then at the same time say a system. As she said, the system is, I'm helping you with one hand and hurting you with the other. And so it's deep. There's a lot of things that are involved here, but there's also a stigma on the other side of it for those people who may really need it. And the stigma is, I want to be able to provide, I want to be able to do all these things, but as a woman, you by yourself, you can't possibly do all of these things, or in a healthy manner. Something is going to be sacrificed somewhere along the line. And so the thought of the children are here, so apparently there was a man somewhere, you know what I'm saying? Like, that dude just dropped through the roof and then went out through the front door. Who knows? Someone was around, and, having to appear to these people to say, yes, apparently someone is around because I got a new name to put on the list, but I don't know who it is. Sometimes she's lying, and we read about that in different spaces, but I can't remember. I think it was either Black Women Manifesto or different spaces where the women had to cover for the man. He was still around. She knew who he is, but he doesn't have the capability to provide to her, so now she has to lie to cover him. And then she has to go back and look at him. And these are all the things real time, not just because, I'm Israel, and now all of a sudden it disappears, that these are some of the very same things that are going on today so that you can have health care and coverage and food in your house and a house. So this is what we're talking about. Is welfare wicked? For those who just tuned in, press 1 so that you can get in the queue and continue to have the conversation. We know for certainty, I'm going to check on South because he said he was looking for Brother Awar and Brother Akwete. But on the other side of that, I would love to hear from the men who may send the women to welfare. What are their motivations for that? How does it make you feel? Is this some of the reason why there's a level of static? Because there's a lot of static between the male and female relationship. Some people are carrying heavy baggages from their past. And so hopefully we'll get into all of that. I'm going to check on Brother Sal, and then I'm going to come back to Sister Mayana. Brother Sal, are you there? Breaker, 1, 2.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I'm here. Just let you know, I spoke to Akwete. He's going to call in a few minutes. But we do have Brother Mercy on the line. He want to join us. Brother Mercy, welcome to the show, Brother Mercy.
How you doing, South Showtime, man? Thank you for inviting me on the show. This is an interesting topic. My name's Brother Mercy, and I appreciate South Showtime and the ladies for inviting me on the show today to talk about this welfare wickedness that's going on.
Yeah, I guess you can break down what's your perspective on the topic as well for wicked.
Oh, sure. Not a problem. Well, see, what I feel, there's no preparation. There's no preparation being done. So what happens is, it's like getting the car. It's like getting into a car accident and forget you didn't get no car insurance. You just forgot. Oh, I ain't never get no car insurance. Oh, I forgot. There's people driving around with no car insurance. Our people just unprepared all the way across the board. I mean, we ain't got to be talking about women. We can talk about anything. They unprepared. We got people dropping out of school. We got people. It's just a whole array of unpreparedness, and even to Torah. And I tried to bring up Torah about circumcising our sons on the 8th day. I got a big flack behind that, and we can't even circumcise our children on the 8th day. It was a big old problem. Our brothers don't even want to do that. So I'm like, well, what do you want to do? All they want to talk about the feast days, what to eat. But it ain't nothing about working. You got to work to be able to eat. So I just think that there's no preparation being made, and that's why our sisters has to rely on the system. And it's not all our brothers' fault. You got a lot of sisters out here that go after the wrong type of guy, drug dealers. Then you got some sisters don't even know who the baby father is. You got those sisters out there too. So it's just a lack of preparation on both sides, and then we got a whole generation of young people that's growing up right now. I'm in the school, so I know exactly what's going on in the inner city. You got a whole generation of people just into the rap, they don't understand that that's just entertainment, but they try to live those lyrics. So now we got a whole problem with that. But I think the problem is we have to start with education. We got to teach our children to get a good education, get some kind of good training. We're going to have to start our own and build our own. And once we start doing that and doing what the Most High tells us to do, starting with little stuff. Just little stuff, whatever He tells us to do, to be able to do it. And I don't think we're doing what He tells us to do. So therefore, we got all these people on welfare. But of course, there's more white people on welfare than black people. People never talk about that. But I think we trying to be like them, and I think that's something else. We try to emulate them, and I think we need to stop that, emulating what they do. I hear my kids tell me, I see the white people smoking pot. Why can't I smoke pot? You can't do what they do. I know the double standard, but you can't do what they do because you ain't got the parents with money to save your behind when you go to jail like they do. So, and I hate to say that, but that's just the truth of the matter. When you broke, you got to think like you're broke. You can't think like you're rich. But that's Brother Mercy's opinion on the subject.
Thank you for joining us, Brother Mercy, and thank you for your thoughts. I would have to say some of what you spoke about, I agree that there's a lack of preparation that goes into some other shows that we've spoken about. Is sex for recreation or procreation? You know, we get into these areas because it's one thing after the next. You know, and when you do have these conversations, like, what? I can't believe you said that. But then when we look at the aftermath, it's like, what? I can't believe we're having this conversation. So we have to find a point to start at and see, you know, diagnose it for what it really is. And so I want to thank you for joining us, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts on the matter. If you're out there in phone land and you would like to chime in, go ahead and press 1, and we're going to come to the boards in a little bit. But for now, we're going to go to Sister Mayana and continue this conversation about, is welfare wicked? You know, are we doing what we're supposed to be doing? A lot of times, like you said, you brought up the church earlier, people beef about the church taking the money. Some churches have soup kitchens. Some churches have spaces and places and canteens and things of which they can help those. So it's something about Israel to a certain degree when you cross over and you wake up to truth, and we kind of forget about all those things. And the very same people that you're walking away from, a lot of the members have to go back to them to appeal to them for their services. And so all of that falls within the welfare of the community. So, again, Sister Mayana, the mic is yours.
Absolutely. We have in these church spaces, like you said, there are soup kitchens, there are pantries, and there are certain services that even if we can't say that their doctrine is always fleshed out or accurate, in many cases, there are some attempts by some of these spaces to reach out to their communities. And we can't say that we are doing that in any kind of meaningful or organized way. And so, and we can see that we're not giving that kind of impression to the outer communities because we see how we are represented in media spaces as being very concerned about subverting cultural norms and being on the fringe of morality and socially acceptable behavior. And so we're very quick to wave our Israelite flags when we get into trouble, but we are not representing a lot of our Israelite culture in these welfare spaces in terms of how we tend to one another and how we take care of one another. And that, again, you're right, we have gone over 30-some-odd episodes where we're dealing with responsibility, accountability, and whether or not we are being mindful of the children. We have an episode called What About the Children? And whether or not a man who is not does not have some type of income, should he be pursuing a family of any type? Because, again, we go to this welfare. There's a movie, I believe it was in the 70s, it may have been in the 60s, with Diane Carroll. It's called Claudine. And usually that's a movie that people of my generation or a little bit older than me will go back and reference as something that was portrayed about a woman who was on welfare and how the welfare system comes in and checks on her family and kind of assesses her need based on her assets. And having a man was a huge asset. And the problem with that is that because, you hear the lamentation of many of our brothers saying, welfare kicked us out of the home. You guys chose to have welfare instead of us. And this is one of the things that doesn't get considered is that what the welfare system is doing here is saying, well, if there's a man, welfare is saying the government has the expectation that that man is providing, that he's not just occupying your bed, but that he is providing for that home. And that wasn't always the case. Where a man was in her bed but not necessarily in her life did not translate monetarily. So not claiming him to the government, because that would make him a liability to the way that she would be able to feed her children. Going back to the video of the 93-year-old elder from the 20s, not the 60s. This is not feminism. This is not, I want welfare. This is the 1920s, early 1900s, where she's saying that her husband left not for a week or a month, but for some years. And so when he wanted to come back, she was like, what are you doing? I've already raised everybody. You can't stay here because I can't feed my children. You're not working. So it's not that, and she's married. This is her husband. This is not her boyfriend. This is her husband. But the system would say, okay, well, there's a man here. So the assumption, and then can we really decry this assumption that if there's a man in the house, that man is expected to provide? This is the contention. The men are saying, why can't we be here? And the government is saying, go be there. No one's telling you not to be there, but the expectation is that you're providing, and if you're providing, we don't have to. And the woman is saying, well, somebody has to. So, for me, the point is to feed the children. And if I have to not say that this adult here is not in my life so that I can feed the children that I'm responsible for, that's what's happening. And it's not a good idea. I'm not saying this is ideal. I'm not saying that this is justifiable or that it's something that we're aspiring to. But we have to look at the logistics of things. We very much need our men in the household because our mothers need husbands. They don't need boyfriends. They don't need bed buddies. And that's the problem, is that there's so many men in the lives of these women in theory, but not in practice. And this is what we need to reconcile first. We talk very often about the statistics about black women are not married, but we're talking about how let's consider statistics. Statistics are going to look at what can be recorded. Now, since the so-called black family has taken the position that we don't want the government involved in things, and we don't want certifications of our unions, then on paper, even if you can be on Facebook married, on paper you are, and on record you are not married. So all the statistics will reflect that you are not married. Now, not being married does not mean you don't have a man, but boyfriends don't make statistics. And that's the problem. We need to start investing in our relationships. If we want to say and we want to fight against these statistics and change what's on record, then we are going to have to make those types of efforts. And we have to stop blaming and laying the culpability at the feet of everyone else, because we already know that no one else is going to care about us. And so a lot of that onus falls on us, first and foremost.
Thank you for that. That was the voice of Sister Mayana. For those who just joined us, we're talking about is welfare wicked? And we want to have the conversation as we're doing. I love the way it's unfolding because it's kind of a domino effect. And I'm going to come to Sister Malaka now. It's a domino effect. Everybody's like, the black woman, she's this, she's that. If you don't provide, she can't do her job. She's going to step out of her position to go do your position. Now the children are uncovered. Now you mad talking about it's all your fault because you raised them. You see, and so, and then the children, they get jacked up. Next generation is jacked up, and it keeps going on and on and on. And then, as Sister Mayana pointed out, if she says, okay, and for me to be here, because I was watching, shout out to Hezekiah News, by the way, on YouTube. I don't even know him, but I just got a shout out, because he digs in the crates. I don't know where he gets these things from, but he's digging in the crates and getting these old documentaries. Back in the 60s when the Moynihan Report came out, the Moynihan Report is a report about the matriarchy in the black family. Please read it if you have not read it. Very interesting stuff. A lot of the stereotypes that we don't know where it came from and we just keep repeating came from the Moynihan Report. So when you look at some of the women saying, you know what, that were home and didn't go to work, now the conversation is, how do we get you people off welfare? You people are too lazy. You got to get off the system, this, that, and the third. And it's a double-edged sword, because if you just go back just a little bit more and we say, like somebody's out there probably, hitting a receiver on the desk saying, it's the economics, it's the so-called white man that's keeping us down that we can't provide. That part is understood. But sometimes we have to section off what the conversation that's happening so we don't slide all over the place. And so we're well aware that there's some difficulty in the workspace for the man to provide. But it does have a trickle-down effect. And so we get to this point where we're supposed to be understanding, or the woman is supposed to be understanding about the man's position, but when it comes to understanding why she doesn't have enough dough to make bread, not so much. I don't care. Make it out of the air. You know what I'm saying? There's all that understanding that's on that masculine energy, but not so much. She's supposed to make miracles happen. And this is what I see a lot oftentimes in the conversation, that it doesn't go all the way through. I still want to see a rising nation. I still want to see the children shining in the morning. I still want to have breakfast when I get up. All of these things, but you didn't provide the stuff. And then we come to the space where the woman is like, forget it. And then, I'm just going to go do it myself. Okay, see, you don't want a man. That's what the problem is. You want to be a strong black woman. That's what the problem is. You want to be independent. The question is, did she just jump up one day and was like, you know what, started singing Beyonce, I want to be independent? Or was this a space that she finally got to in order to survive? So I just wanted to put that out there. I'm going to go to Sister Malaka, and then I'm going to come to the audience in a minute. Sister Malaka, the mic is yours.
Yes, everything that you just said. I completely agree with everything that you just said. Like I was saying earlier, I come from a space of having worked with a lot of women, all ages, a lot of young women, though, who are currently receiving welfare. I also come from a space of having received welfare for a period of time in my own life. I received benefits for 3 years right after the end of a marriage. My husband had left the home and decided he wanted to be married to someone else. And I had to provide for my children, and he was not willing to do so, and so I did get welfare benefits. I don't think there's a sin as a mother and as a woman in going to receive help when you need help to take care of your children. The problem is that so many times we get stuck there. I used to tell people who would come to workshops with me that there's two kinds of poverty. There's situational poverty and there's generational poverty. And generational poverty is what, unfortunately, we see a lot of when you're dealing with someone who's on welfare and has been on welfare for many years and coming from a family where maybe they were on welfare for many years. So when you're in generational poverty, there are certain life skills that the average person takes for granted that a person who's lived in poverty all their lives and been the product of poverty all their lives doesn't necessarily have. Now, that doesn't mean that a person cannot come up in poverty and have those life skills. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that when you are in that situation as a child, let's say you're the child of fourth-generation welfare family, you've not seen somebody necessarily get up and go to work every day. So you don't know what's all is involved in that. You don't know the structure that is required in order to do that. You don't know that you need to go to bed by a certain time or you're not going to be able to do that. You don't know that you need to, look at how you're going to get back and forth to work and have a plan A and B and C if you have car trouble or you have, not enough change for the bus or whatever the situation is. You don't know those kinds of skills if you've not seen them being practiced in front of you. So if you start having children before you've acquired those skills, now you're bringing up another generation of children who don't have those skills because you didn't have them. And so I want to really just take a look at women for a moment because I think we all understand, the absence of the man and what that creates in the home. We know that that's valid, that's real, and I want to talk a little bit about why men are choosing to not be there or to be there but not carry more of the load of the household. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But the first thing that I really want to say, because this is something we can really do something about, we can't do something about another person's behavior as a woman, but we can do something about our own behavior, our own choices, our own trajectory in life. That we have some measure of control over. And I always tell young women, before you have a baby, you need to know that the man is committed to the raising of that baby. But because we don't slow down, we don't think like that because we're looking at getting our emotional needs met ahead of actually building a nation or ahead of building, a family. We're just trying to get emotional needs met. So until we can look at ourselves and actually be reflective and actually do some inner work before we start having a baby, we're gonna always suffer. As long as we're in this captivity, we're gonna always suffer from this cycle, because the cycle won't stop until we do the work. Until we're willing to do the emotional work. Until, as a mother, I'm willing to deny myself the emotional feel-good of a man hugging and rubbing on me, but not providing for me. Emotionally, I feel like I got a man, but physically, I don't have anything happening in my life in terms of a man's presence. And until I'm ready to stop accepting that so that I can move on to the possibility of something better, I'm going to keep getting, the outcome of having to go into the welfare office, pregnant again, and talk to somebody now and add a new baby onto the case, and they're looking at me like, well, how did this new baby get here? So I want to say just a little bit more about the emotional aspect of this. I talk every day to young women who are so hungry to be loved and accepted and affirmed and to belong to something. And they're like prey. They're sitting there waiting for the first man that will come along and tell them they're pretty, that will tell them that they love them, that will tell them that, they want them. And there's not a whole lot of question about how long this relationship is going to last. Where are we going with this? What are we going to build? There's not a lot of that kind of conversation or dialogue going on. It's more that my emotions are being massaged. I'm being touched emotionally. And because women tend to be emotional creatures, we're just prone to this. So I just want to tell like a really quick little snippet that I share with young women, and then I'm going to turn the mic over to someone else. I just think it's so important that we get this, that we get that as women, we have to stop being driven by our emotions and learn to be self-contained. Disciplined is the word I'm looking for. There's a discipline that's lacking, and if we don't have it, we can't give it to our kids. But I'll just tell this story, and I'm going to step aside for a moment. But in nature, when the female eagle is ready to mate, she looks around and sees the male eagles that are near her, and she flies past them to, of course, get their attention. Once she has their attention, they're now following her. She swoops down and she picks up a stick of some weight, and she goes up really high to a pretty good altitude and drops that stick. And the point is that the male eagles need to try to catch that stick before it hits the ground and bring that stick up back to the altitude from which she dropped it from. She will do that several times, eliminating males as she goes, because not every male can reach the altitude that she's ascending to. Not every male can grab the stick, is quick enough to grab the stick before it hits the ground. Not every male can bring it back up without letting it hit the ground first. So she eliminates a lot of males before she actually mates. When she does mate, it's with the male who was able to catch the heaviest stick at the lowest altitude and bring it back up to the highest altitude. The reason she mates with him is because when it's time to teach her babies how to fly, she's going to put that baby on her wing, fly out of her nest, and drop that baby. And if she can't get to that baby in time, she needs that male to be able to swoop down, pick up that baby, and bring it back up to the altitude from which it was dropped. And if he can't do that, she won't mate with him. And so my point in telling that story is that we can learn from nature. We can learn, a lot about the Creator's will from nature. As a woman, if we could just deal with ourselves so that we could develop discipline, self-control, all the fruit of the Spirit that Scripture says we're supposed to be, craving, wanting to be developed in our lives. if we would do that, if we would turn to the Creator, if we would be introspective, if we would let Him show us how to deal with those hurts and those issues, then we could develop the fruit of self-control. And then we wouldn't move into these spaces of building families without a husband there to build with us. And that's, of course, a what if. That's for future generations. And I know we're talking about right now, what's going on right now. But I just wanted to say that because there are women who are listening who are raising little girls right now. And right now, they need to see mommy practicing self-control and discipline so that they will understand that there's a time and a season for everything. And when it's not the right time, the right person, or right season, we don't do that. So I'm gonna hand over the mic to someone else now.
Wow, thank you for that. That was the voice of Sister Malaka, dropping it today. That was good some information. Stories is a great way in which to transmit a thought. You remember it, because you have points to connect within the story. So definitely thank you for that. And like you said, there's, oftentimes we hear, it's the nature. People refer to nature, but only one side of nature. It's the nature to be undisciplined, or it's the nature to be, if you want to jump from all these women, sexually active like the lion, But the other part of nature is like, I don't want to hear about that. But as you just said, creation is wisdom within creation to make sure that you have suitable mates. And I appreciate you bringing up the point that the damage that has been done. Well, I'm adding to it, so you're gonna be like, when did I say that? No, but the damage that has been done creates so much of a void within us that at some point we have to stop, and that's what I love to talk about a lot. I call it Solonomics, whether you want to call it healing, soul elevation, whatever it is. At some point, the woman and the man has to stop and decide that I'm going to, as you said, deal with these things before I proceed. Because if you don't, you're gonna be operating out of your lack. And when it's like if a man goes outside and that person is not so hungry, something full, they're not gonna pick it up, right? Because the desire is not really that there. I'm not, not that hungry. But if a person goes outside, or a person lives outside, or that person is homeless, they will make different decisions based on that need. Now they're in the dumpster. Now they're diving. Now they're eating half-eaten sandwiches off of tables. Now they're drinking because all of that reservation is gone. I'd like to say, and it's unfortunate, but a lot of us are emotionally that homeless person. We've been starved for so long. I just read a narrative and actually wrote a book report on the narrative. But anyway, where the woman in the narrative says, Aunt Charlotte was her name, her child died. And she said, when the woman asked her, Octavia, who was writing the book back in the 1800s, she's like, what happened to the child? She said the child died of lack of attention. Because as a mother at that time, she had to do the master's bidding. And so a lot of people are not physically dying from that lack of attention, but they're emotionally dead. And to resurrect that empty space takes a lot of energy. And what's very important is know thyself. Be aware of yourself and that void that you have so that you don't become prey, so that you don't attract predators. But because otherwise you're blood in the water and you don't realize it. And then we have all of these stories, and then we hear people say, oh, it's not working. I'm not an Israelite anymore. I walked away from the truth, because they weren't being really, really honest with themselves. So we can't put on nationhood as a cloak, as a coat, and pretend that just knowing how to repeat scriptures in and of itself is going to, quote, give you salvation. And so hopefully conversations like this will shake us up a little bit, because we do need to be shaken up. Like I like to say, the world's watching. But with that, I'm going to go to Brother Sal, then I'm going to check on Brother Mercy and see how everything is going. Those who've just tuned in, the question of the day is welfare wicked? You say wicked, you got to put a little extra on the W, because that's how they really get you to shudder, right? So is welfare wicked is the question. We're talking about welfare in light of the Torah and as well as what's happening today. So, Brother Sal, are you on the line? Let us know what's going on. Do we have any ones, any hands in the air?
All right, once again, family, you know this is a relationship challenge. As Welfare Wicked is the topic. Again, the number is 319-527-6239. I see we have a lot of people on the phone lines, but if you have a question, simply press number 1, and we'll add you in the conversation. Again, also my email is open for those who are shy and you don't want to call in. You can send me an email at debatetalkview@gmail.com. That's debatetalk, the number 4, and letter U @gmail.com. I'm going to bring in Brother Mercy. Brother Mercy, go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like there's like a lot of stuff going on that we're just not talking about. One of those things being, you know, I heard this say quoting scripture, but I just don't get the quoting scripture part because they don't quote the right scriptures. I don't hear any man talking about quote the scripture that says in 1 Thessalonians, man don't work, he don't eat. I don't hear him quoting that scripture. Maybe there's certain scriptures they need to quote because they're staying away from that one. I never hear any of them quoting that one. If a man don't work, he don't eat. Ladies, listen to that verse. Listen to that scripture. See if they quote that one. And see, you know, so to me, it's like it's so obvious. A lot of these characters, man, they just characters. I mean, you kind of have to know what to look for. You know, I think ladies know what to do when they go shopping. They go in the shopping mall. Sometimes they take a long time shopping. So obviously they know how to shop and buy the right thing when they're inside the store. But when it comes to relationships, I think something is missing. So, I mean, you know, I think a lot of brothers out here, you know, maybe they don't know. Maybe because we don't have fathers, you know, the family structure is not there. But I just feel, again, going back to education, going back to training, having some type of skill, working, you know, building, and, you know, that type of thing. I think, though, there's something going on in our society where women are cleaving, you know, towards certain types of men who, you know, maybe they're – I mean, I'll just be real with you. When I was in college, I'm going to tell you how I went down. I was in college, the football team. When I was in college, football team, all the ladies chased football players, you know. I mean, I'm just telling you how I went down, you know. So what happened when they got their heart broke by the football players, and they came to Brother Mercy. I'm just telling you how, you know, so I was the second choice. But I'm just letting you know how I ain't want to bring this to the table, but this is usually how it goes down. So then, you know, I'm just saying, you know, a lot of people's first choice is not the right choice. You know, that goes between men and women. But I'm just saying, I see a lot of that going on, whether it's a rapper, whether it's a football player, whether I don't know what it is, the braids on the head or whatever. It's something they go after that we're not talking about that has nothing to do with Torah, that has nothing to do with, you know, and a lot of times these guys, they chasing after, you know, it ain't, you know, I'll just leave it there. They know what they're doing. We all know what we're doing. So I think we got to come to express the truth. Some of us are deceived, but a lot of us are not. I think a lot of us are not deceived. So, and I'm not saying Brother Moses is the most righteous person in the world, but I'm just saying as far as I just feel there's a climate that's going on that we're not, it's an elephant in the room that we're not talking about. It's like we're going by sodas talking about why we don't have milk in the refrigerator. And it's like we keep going buying sodas, and, you know, you like, ain't no milk in the refrigerator. Well, you're not going after milk. That's not what you're chasing after. Because I believe if the women chase after the right men, the men would change their game. That's what I believe. But I don't see the women going after the type of men they should go after, so therefore the men are not changing. That's my opinion. Because I think women got more power than they know. But I just feel that way. You know, I think men try to paint a picture that attracts certain females, or whatever the case may be. But that's just my opinion. Maybe you guys can quote, and I know there's the welfare wicked type thing. I don't think welfare is wicked because I think there are some people that actually fall into that needs welfare. But I think there's a lot of people that welfare is their ceiling, where they're not trying to elevate themselves. So I say all that to say, or if they try to elevate themselves, they try to elevate themselves by getting with a rapper, or they try to elevate themselves by getting with a certain type of dude that has nothing to do with Torah, you know. And then these jokers on the street that promote Torah, they not quoting the right script. They quoting these scriptures that's just, I don't know, man. I wouldn't listen to them. So all I'm saying is it's a lot going on. We got to know what to look for, I think. And I think that's not what's being taught. The old women speak to young women what to look for. If a man's on the street preaching, but he ain't got no J.O.B., that's a bad sign. If a man's preaching on the streets and, you know, he don't get along with his mother, that's a bad sign. You know, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm crazy. But there's certain things that I've been taught that I was raised by that helps me make better. I'm not saying I make the best choices, but there's certain things that my parents taught me that helped me stay away from them, a lot of those bad females that probably could have ruined my life. You know, so I say that to
Yeah, his call actually just dropped. As soon as he called back in, of course, I'll bring him back in. But, of course, you know that number, people, 319-527-6239. And we do have a social media question, Muna. Whenever you're ready, let me know.
All right. I just want to thank Brother Mercy for that. As he was speaking, he brought up some very important points, which is kind of to turn it around. And we're going to take the social media question, but we do have brothers who are receiving welfare, not necessarily from the man or the Babylon system, but they have women and congregations supporting them in a Levitical role, and that is a level of you're not necessarily working by the sweat of your brow. And so that's another question. Should, in the light of welfare, should people be supporting men, namely, who's out there teaching, who for just only teaching? If you're not sure if you're Levite, you might be a Nephrite, who knows? And you're not, should they be sending to support him to pay his light bill, to pay his phone bill, to pay all of these things so that they can be washed with the word? I've heard that somewhere before, washed with the word, right? We're going to check out Sister Mariana, but first we're going to come to the phone lines. And I have one more thing. When Mercy was saying he wasn't quite sure what was going on, it kind of goes back to what Sister Malaka was saying and what I was saying. There's a thought out there that you don't go to the supermarket hungry. So, yes, women know how to shop for different things, but when you go to supermarket hungry, everything is going to look good. And so if you're emotionally void and you're low on certain things, then, like Sister Malaka said, the first person who comes along and strokes your ego to a certain degree, you're going to find a reason to like them. This is a little bit about how women work. And some men who are predatory, they know that. They know, I got to tell her it's X, Y, and Z, and I'll get her to do whatever I want, And so, as he said, there is a conversation behind the conversation that gets us to this space that we need to continue to have. But for those who are calling in, the question is welfare wicked? Brother Sal, feel free to let us know the social media question at this time.
All right, we have a lot more people joining into the show. Once again, the title of the show is Welfare or Wicked? Is welfare or wicked? If you have a question or a comment, let's press number 1, and we'll add you in the conversation. If you're on social media, that number, once again, 319-527-6239. Let me read this question on social media, on Facebook. The question is, what is the difference between welfare and going to work for Esau, 9 to 5? That's the question.
What's the difference between welfare? I'm going to pass this question around, but one of them, you're working, and welfare, you're not working. I'm understanding. You're getting a stipend to a certain degree for your maintenance, but you're not really doing anything to warrant that. It was actually initially, if I'm not mistaken, after the Great Depression, it was something that, to make sure that you could stay afloat until you're able to touch back bases on the other side. And, when it became a career choice, that's when, it became a problem. And as Brother Mercy said, it's not just melanated people. It's actually a number of people. There are countless articles about the need for welfare, the need for even subsidies in this day and time for a lot of even working class people. And that just speaks to the economy. But, yeah, welfare, to my understanding, is something that you're getting as a stipend in exchange for not really doing anything, something that others pay into and maybe yourself has paid into in times past when you work, and now you're just kind of cashing in on that until you're able to get stable. But I'm going to check with Sister Mariana, see if she wants to answer the question as well. and then we'll come to Sister Malaka. Sister Mayana, the mic is yours.
I would have to agree with that the principal difference between having an employment and being on welfare is that you are not actively engaging in creating income for yourself. It has nothing to do with, as you said, the sweat of your brow or any of your particular efforts. Instead, there's a dependency on the magnanimous nature of the community. The burden is falling on the community to sustain you rather than you actively engaging in some kind of activity that will provide for you. So, again, that would be the principal difference. I think that what the social media querent is looking at is that it's in either event is coming from this outside source instead of it being a community-generated kind of support system. And that's true, but only partially, because the fact is that the government is siphoning all of these funds from the community. That is a tax. So this is a tax fund that people who work, the community, submits to the government, and the government just goes, then later allocates it to the poor and the needy. But the community it's a community effort. It's a community support that is just simply managed by the government. The government isn't giving away anything. They're not. They don't have funds allocated. They don't earmark things out of the treasury for this. This is something that they get from the taxpayers, and then it gets allocated to those that are in need. And I think that it bears restating that this is not a melanated effort. This is not an effort or relief for non-melanated people, for melanated people only. So I think that bears repeating. It's something that all of us who are employed or have been employed, have paid into the system, are giving to our neighbors, even though we don't get to choose. That's the principal difference. We don't get to choose who that neighbor is. It's just whatever neighbor is in need and applies for it. That's my contribution to the question of the caller. I'll give that to Malaka, and we can resume the discussion from there.
Okay. Well, what I would say is that what I hear when I hear that question is kind of like similar to a young man that told me once that he felt like welfare was his reparation. And so I'm just going to speak to that on like a real practical, baseline, frontline level. As somebody who's worked in the belly of the welfare beast, I'm going to say this. When you're working, even if you're working for someone other than yourself, you are gaining skills. You're acquiring a skill set that you can take from that job, go someplace else, and maybe gain additional income because of what you learned at that previous position. That's why when you fill out an application or a resume, you say all the places you worked before and what your job was, what you did in those places, and you're able to parlay those skills into perhaps a higher paying position because you gained those skills from your previous place of employment. When you are on welfare, you are not gaining a new skill set unless you are purposely getting up every day and going out into the community and doing something that is causing you to acquire a skill set. Or if you're enrolled in school and you're learning something that causes you to acquire a skill set. But my experience has been that it is very easy for people to do neither of those things and just receive the handout. So when you're receiving the welfare benefits and you're doing nothing to increase your skill set, you are purposely minimizing yourself. You are causing a situation where you cannot increase your income because they're never going to give you a raise. We're in a mode now where they're going to continue to cut and cut and cut and cut the benefits until they are able to wean people off or kick people off. So if you're on a situation where your income is decreasing and your skill set is not increasing, you got a problem. So that's the first thing I want to say. The second thing that I want to say is that no one is saying that I've heard in the conversation that you can't start a business for yourself to create income. You don't have to work a 9-to-5 job. The problem is that sometimes if we haven't had a family business that we've grown up in, or if we haven't had an education that taught us a specific skill, we may not be coming out into the workforce with a skill. And so we've got to obtain that skill from somewhere. And if you're not going to go to school to obtain that skill, then the workplace environment is where you would go to obtain that skill. So the difference between being on welfare and working a 9-to-5 for Esau is that when I'm working a 9-to-5, even if I'm working for quote-unquote Esau, I should be gaining knowledge and skills. When I'm just receiving welfare, I'm just receiving welfare. Nothing about me is growing or increasing that will provide income for my family in the future unless I'm specifically causing that to happen through some type of educational training or pursuit. And that's all I'll say on that.
System, wow. Yeah, ditto on that one. Ditto on that one. Yeah. I check off on that. Thank you for that. Thank you for the question from the social media. Hopefully it was answered. I know, again, this is all of the spaces that we struggle with, So once again, let me check on Brother Sal and see if we have any more questions or comments from the audience. Brother Sal. Are you still there, Brother Sal? Did you fall off?
Yeah, did we lose Brother Sal?
All right, we're going to have to SOS him behind the scenes. Sister Mayana, let's go ahead and pick up while we SOS Sal on the keys, on the ones and twos, and find out what's going on.
Hold on, I'm back. I'm back.
Wait, there you
go. I'm about to fly, put up my flare. Be like, Brother Sal. Yeah. We'll check who's on the phone line.
Everybody put a debate talk for you singing in the sky. I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now, Brother Mercy is back, though. Brother Mercy, you can share your perspective. Go ahead.
Yeah, what I wanted to say, though, is that, like I said earlier, that, we have to start your own, build your own, have a skill, start your own, work for someone. I need to read these couple verses here because I think our brothers are delusional because they think that working for Esau is a new idea. You've been working, your ancestors worked for Esau and didn't get a paycheck at all. So, why you think you better than your ancestors? And my thing is, if you get on that welfare system, you're going to stay on it, you're not growing. So let me read these two verses. It says, 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, real quick, verse 7, for you yourselves know how you ought to follow our example, because we did not act in an undisciplined or inappropriate manner when we were with you. We were never idle or lazy, nor did we avoid our duties, nor did we eat anyone's bread without paying for it, but with labor and hardship we worked night and day to pay our own way, so that we would not be a financial burden on any of you for your support. Not because we do not have a right to such support, but we provide our own financial support to offer ourselves as a model for you, so that you would follow our example. For even while we were with you, we used to give you this order: if anyone is not willing to work, then he is not to eat either. Indeed, we hear that some among you are leading an undisciplined and inappropriate life, doing no work at all, but acting like busybodies, meddling in other people's businesses. So what is the apostle trying to tell us here? Even 2,000 years ago, there were some people that didn't want to work for Esau. Because they had Esau back then, and they would have called the Romans. They had Esau back then. And people, I ain't working for that Roman. I ain't working for that Roman. And those people back there had the same attitude. And so what is Paul saying? The Pharisees. He's saying, look, if you don't work, you don't eat. You go. See, this is the thing. You work for, like the sister was saying earlier, you work for quote unquote Esau. You're not really working for Esau. You work for your family. You're working for family. You may have to work under Esau just to get that skill or that knowledge to start your own. That's why you're in the educational system. That's why you're learning these skills so you can do your own things. So eventually, you can branch out. But if you're not trying to work at all, then all you're going to do is be meddling other people's business and screwing up stuff. And that's what's going on. You got a lot of brothers out here talking about working for Esau. Man, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard in my life. You work to try to gain a skill, and then you start your own. That's what Brother Mercy's trying to do. That's what a lot of brothers that I hang around is trying to do. We're working so that eventually we don't have to work, and we'll have our own stuff. And that's the goal you want to get to. But these brothers out here, all they want to talk about is working for Esau. So my thing is like this. You got to develop a skill so that you can do your own. And is welfare wicked? I don't think so. However, it can become wicked if it's not utilized correctly. So, and what I see with some of our people is they gravitated towards the rap culture, and what they end up doing is they end up on welfare because they realize that the whole culture is a lie. So that's all I had to say about that, but I hope we can grow to a point that we'll have some work ethics so that we can build our own nation one day. So that's Brother Mercy's stuff.
All right, now y'all heard it. That's the voice of Brother Mercy. He done gave y'all the whole of Thessalonians. There's nothing new. I was just reading that to the babies this Shabbat. Solomon Ecclesiastes. There's nothing new under the sun. And so this thought process that, everybody, Nehemiah or Nehemiah, he worked for, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, Ezra, he worked. Yeah, Daniel, he worked. And they were all in a level of captivity. So this thought of not working, especially as a man because of where you are, and having your family to go into these places, not even just for an intermediate time, but, as a career path, presents a problem. But I'm going to check on Brother Sal and turn that off, and see if we have any more questions or comments from the audience. And then we're going to come back to the ladies and Brother Mercy and continue the conversation. Brother Sal, are you there?
All right. Once again, it's a relationship challenge. We only have like 37 minutes left on the air, family. We have 37 minutes left on the air. So, again, if you have any questions or comments, simply press number 1, and we'll add you to the conversation. If you're new to the show, just dial that number. And then once you dial the number, press number 1, and we'll add you in. I see we have a lot of people on the phone lines listening live. So if you're on the phone lines already, simply press number 1, and we'll add you in. It's Welfare Wicked. Nobody pressing number 1 at this time, so we're going to continue with the dialogue.
All right, thank you, Brother Sal. I notice sometimes we do topics that are kind of sensitive, and people don't necessarily want to put themselves out there, and be exposed, and that's understandable. We definitely understand the apprehension, but it's just to, your interaction would definitely help for us to go into areas of the conversation that we need to go into and unpack them. And so definitely your voices are needed. We're not just up here pontificating and talking to ourselves. Hopefully we're putting forth information and raising awareness on conversations that need to be had in private spaces as well as public spaces. So we'll be the bridge. That's just what I'm saying. We'll be the bridge. It's all good. I will go to Sister Mayana, then I'm going to check out Sister Malaka. Sister Mayana, as Sal said, we winding down, and that went kind of quickly. So let us know your thoughts. What you heard thus far, but anything else you want to add to the conversation?
I want to go and touch on the very poignant anecdote that Malaka shared with us regarding the eagle. And what we saw demonstrated there is standards, boundaries and expectations. And these are things that we have been trying to encourage in the women, that it is okay, indeed it is feminine to have boundaries. It's imperative to have expectations. It's important to have standards, and what the Eagle is demonstrating there is all of those three things. Unfortunately, we have a cult kind of conversation that is discouraging women from exercising any of those things. Instead, they are kind of being crowded into spaces where they are told that they don't have permission to expect anything or to ask anything. Indeed, they should feel privileged to be chosen. So we have, instead of having women that are considering what's going to happen to their children, considering the longevity of these relationships, they are in this kind of pick-me mode where what they want to be is chosen. What they want to be, is that kind of dystopian idea where it's just, I just want to be called by somebody's name. And that's the objective. And it kind of touches also, like I said earlier, and what you and Muna has said about wanting to belong to someone, and to somewhere. Brother Mercy, I want to also, Brother Mercy touches on that also, that when a woman has those kinds of standards and expectations, and the men will rise to that level. Because as the eagle that has dropped something from a particular altitude wants to see the man rise and meet her ascension, and we're telling the men that they don't need to rise to anything because we don't expect anything, they will do nothing. And that's what we have found. We have found that because the women have adopted this kind of ride or die mentality, that we're not going to have expectations of our men, that we have essentially given up on them. And we think that what we're doing is being supported. We think that we are not being burdensome or oppressive, and we're not nagging. But what we've done is we've abandoned them. We say, we don't expect anything from you. So we're not asking you for anything. And we're not really paying attention to the messages that we're sending. These are very detrimental messages that we are sending. That kind of mentality has not done anything for us, and yet we want to repeat the mantra of being the ride or die bee, or the ride or die chick. And this is not a healthy mentality. It's a maladaptive mentality that hasn't worked for us and will not work for us in the future. We need to be women who say, you know what? Instead of we're not going to continue to confer names to you and titles to you that don't represent you. We're not. Everything with a penis is not a king. You're not my husband. There's no legitimacy in our relationships, and we have to stop giving these names. We have to stop playing house. We have to divorce ourselves from these Disney-esque destinies that we imagined as children because we were exposed to them on television, or we think that we have these princess complex where we're going to be rescued. And we're not. We're not in a time or a space where our men are princes or born into those kinds of spaces. That they're working very diligently, should be working very diligently, or need to aspire to those things. And we have to be very honest about where we are. Brother Mercy spoke about women being attracted to men who are football players or the like. I think that that's another cue from nature. To be honest, I think the women are responding to that because it's another cue from nature. We'll look at nature, for example. It is the male peacock that has the most beautiful plumage. And what he does is he goes and he displays himself. And football players and rappers and all these other hyper-masculine men do a lot of preening. They're the ones doing all of these shows of masculinity, so the women are reacting to the performance of masculinity. And that happens in nature. Even we like to speak about the lions. What the lions do, the lionesses get together and they watch the men fight it out. And it's the man the male lion or the lion that emerges victorious. That's the one that gets to lead the pride. Because there's this show of masculinity. So women for good, bad, or indifferent, or so far very badly, are responding to the performance of masculinity, the shows of masculinity, instead of the reality of manness or maleness. And because of the fact, and just to go back to the previous point, that women are not really asking for the men to come through with all of those shows. They're not really holding them accountable for what they have suggested or promised. These expectations, these boundaries, and these standards, we're not keeping them. We are not displaying them, and this is our fault. This is where we need to be responsible and accountable for, and say we need to do more than just see these things. But unfortunately, women, like I said, there's this cult or this conversation of discouragement where women are in this constant, perpetual fear of emasculating the man. If we ask anything, we are immediately relegated into these spaces where we have emasculated him by having an expectation. We instead are mothering our men. And we shouldn't do that. We cannot do that. We have to allow our men to be men. And we have to celebrate that masculinity, expect that masculinity, because we need them to be men. We cannot be men for them. We have to stop saying that these are spaces that we are willing to supplement. We can't keep doing that. I think it was Imuna earlier in this conversation and in many conversations before, I said it, she has said it, that for as long as we are occupying their spaces, they can never occupy them. If the men have left them vacant, that's not really for us to pick up on them, even though unfortunately the circumstances have been that because these places have been left abandoned and have been left vacant, women have, through necessity, pick those spaces up. But when we decide to claim them and not move and not allow for anyone else to come into those spaces, then this is where there's no room for advancement. We have adopted this culture of fear. Like, okay, listen, if I abandon this post, there's nobody that's going to pick it up. We have to rebuild those bonds of trust where we believe that the men are going to do what they're going to do, expect for the men to do what they're going to do, and follow through with that. And what we have to do is kind of negotiate how to do that without making them feel oppressed, because apparently for every time, there's this constant reimagining of our expectations as oppression or nagging or being, or even, being masculine against them. But I think that's a conversation that we need to have with the men. This is not a conversation we're not going to be able to solve among the women, because it's necessarily something that the men are saying they're sensitive to. And they're sensitive to it for a lot of very real, very important realities that they have experienced historically. And that their masculinity has constantly been challenged, and the idea of the feminine challenging it is off-putting. So we have to find ways to do that. We need real practical solutions, and to think that we can do that one-sidedly is misguided. It's intellectually dishonest. We're not going to be able to do it alone. With that, I yield the floor.
All right, thank you for that. That was the voice of Sister Mayana. We at the 9:30 mark, winding on down to 10 o'clock. For those who just joined us, my name is Amuni Israel. I'm the hostess, co-host of Debate Talk for You, the Relationship Challenge, and we're having a little summer session. That's what Sal calls it, right? So we're going to come to Sister Malaka. Before we do, we're going to see if any brave soul was willing to raise their finger, put it close to the receiver, and press 1. Brother Sal, do we have anybody on the line?
That's a negative at this time, but still standing
by. All right.
Watching for those ones.
We got it. We like to hear from the people. We got to hear from the people. So we're going to go ahead and Sister Malaka. She's been dropping fire all night. Let's hear as we wind down, not necessarily your closing thoughts, but we're kind of getting close to it. And then we're going to check on Brother Mercy, and then we're probably going to go around for our closing thoughts. So Sister Malaka, as you begin to pack it up, not all the way up, but just begin to put the stuff in the bag. Let's hear your thoughts on this round of conversation.
Okay.
Sister Malaka, is yours.
Okay. Well, I've just been enjoying all the comments that I've heard tonight, and I want to say to the person that sent the social media question, I think it's important to know that I am in no way beating up on anyone or in any way trying to judge anyone about the way that they're choosing to live their life. But what we're doing is we're talking about solutions, and we're talking about ways that we can turn things around, because we can look at this Monahan report that Sister Mayana referenced and see where a lot of the stereotypes that we use to cut each other up are coming from. And I've heard many men say, women, Hebrew women are emasculating, and we don't want to concede power, and we don't want to, move over, and we'd rather have welfare than have them. And I'm not going to say that there isn't some woman somewhere who's behaving that way, but to be really honest, what I've seen a lot of is I've seen a lot of Hebrew women buffering between their man and the world, buffering between their man and the system. And we do this because we love you. We do this because we need you, and we want you, and we want you to be around, and we don't want the system to eat you up and spit you out, and we don't want you to suffer, and we don't want you. But we do this to your detriment. If we don't uphold the standard of having real relationships, real marriages, so that we can raise real families, build a real nation this way, if we don't hold you to a standard, we're loving you, we're smothering you, we're not letting you be powerful, we're not letting you have the space to be the leader, to be the man. If I am having you and welfare, if I'm letting you sleep in my bed while I get food stamps because you're not working, or you're only working part-time and don't want to work full-time, I'm not loving you when I do that, because you're not developing to your full potential that business idea that's inside of you, or that dream that you have to create a legacy for your children. We're squashing that by smothering it right out of you, by taking care of you, by not requiring that you take care of home. And so these things are being said in love. They're not being said in an attempt to emasculate or minimize a man's masculinity. My father married, I'm older. My father married my mom at the age of, I think he was 21, and my mother was 20. By the time my father was 28, he had 4 children, and he worked to support those children. Sometimes he worked 2 jobs. He was a very hard worker, and I never knew as a child that we were struggling. I remember one night we had dinner by candlelight, and I thought we were just having dinner by candlelight. I didn't realize until I was an adult that the lights were off, because my mother just made it romantic. She didn't say, well, look at you, you couldn't keep the light bill on. She supported him. And so I come from a tradition of seeing a man go out and work hard and seeing a woman support that and take what he could bring home and make a whole lot out of that. And I'm telling you that there are still women like that doing that. But you've got to be the man that will allow for the woman to be the feminine. I heard a quote once that said, the gift of masculinity is femininity. In other words, as long as I'm in the space of having to be mother and father, I'm not able to truly embrace all that's feminine about me. But it's when a masculine steps into that space that I'm able to now be the feminine. So if you believe that Hebrew women are being too aggressive, too assertive, and being too emasculating, that means there's a vacuum in masculinity, and only you can fill that vacuum. We live in a society where it's encouraged to be immature and childish for a long time. We are now moving into an age where you can be genderless. You don't have to be masculine. There are no expectations that society is putting on you for being, as a man or as a woman. You can just be genderless, a genderless child forever. I guess kind of like Peter Pan. But the reality is that if we are Hebrews, if we are called by our fathers, if we are the people of the book, then that is not what the Most High has called us to be. That's not who he's called us to be. He's called us to be men and women, and there are expectations that he places on us as a man or as a woman. So we can't really just continue to buy into this belief that, you know, I don't have to take on certain responsibilities because I'm being anti-system. Whether the system requires you to be responsible or not, your God, your Elohim, requires you to be responsible. He requires me to be responsible. So those aren't exactly my closing thoughts, but that's I'm getting close to them. That's kind of it. But I'm going to step aside and give the mic to someone else.
Thank you for that. Sister Malaka got me over here like, that's right. That's right. You know, she Sister Mayana, Sister Malaka, Brother Mercy is on it tonight. Y'all on the ball. Y'all must have really missed it. We're going to have to invite back Sister Malaka because she's dropping fire as well. You know, all of the panelists have been on the ball with this conversation that it's not just, you know, one thing, yes or no. There are other things in play. There are other mentalities in play. There are other internal decisions that people have made and have chosen to sacrifice family and their responsibility and make excuses and then, as you said, put the burden on the woman directly or inadvertently and then complain about her attitude and disposition, which is total madness. And I remember someone was saying that, and I took him to the book of Sirach, and, you know, as you know, in the book of Sirach, it says, a woman who maintains a husband, this is how she's going to be reacting. It's not going to be good. It's not rocket science. If she has to do your job, she's not going to do it with a smile. And so, you know, as we're having this conversation about welfare, we definitely have to talk about, as they said, is it the husband that's going to be there or the man, or is it going to be the state? And if you elect for whatever reason, you have to be willing, you know, as a man and, as you said, as a woman, to let the man be a man. And if you want, you know, if you want champagne money and you're not able to deal with what he's giving you, you may not be the right woman for that man. And if some people say, well, you're a gold digger, then that's another question for another day. You know what I'm saying? But if she has certain expectations, if he gets a princess and he expects her to live like a pauper, then he made a wrong choice as well. Because if you knew that you wasn't able to provide for her, then you shouldn't have went and tried to get her. And as you said, you know, there's no rites of passages anymore. There's no expectations that, listen, at 20, you're not supposed to be looking for a woman. You're supposed to be looking for how you can sustain yourself. Because if you can't sustain one, you sure can't sustain two, or 3 or 4, or however many come after that. And so these are the conversations that we've had up until this point, and it's apparent that we have to continue to have them, because the children are thinking, oh, he's cute, I want to get with him, she's cute. And you have, like they used to say, not a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. You don't have, I would say what the Jamaicans say, but that's kind of rude, so I'll leave that for another day. But they will basically say you don't have, like, dry anything in your behind. Like that's the best way I could clean it up. Brother Sal probably heard that saying before. And that's the way of saying you're not ready yet. You know what I'm saying? As they would say, you know, you're green. And we take that as an insult, and then we fall into these traps when the responsibilities inevitably show up, because that's what you're doing. You're building a family without the right tools. And as Brother Mercy keeps saying through the night, and I have to agree with him, foundation and education are very important. You cannot say, as a man, I'm the leader, I'm the head, I'm in front, let me go, excuse me, get out my way, and then come to the table with a half-cooked scheme. See, what I'm going to do is lay with you. We're going to write the ketubah on the napkin. I don't need no witnesses because our pillow was there, and we're going to declare it's me and you, Bonnie and Clyde. This is a recipe for disaster. And so we definitely have to continue to raise the bar as we're having this conversation. And for the children that's coming behind us, you know, parents, please pull them to the side and begin to instill within them how to succeed, you know, and prepare for children. I had somebody tell me one time that I forgot where. Oh, that preparing for a child is what white people do, so-called white people. Because, and then I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? I wouldn't even really be mad at that to a certain degree, because that's what we as a people have modeled. Children are like, oh, chill, I didn't know that was going to happen. Oh, for real? You're surprised. But when you plan, as we talked about before, to have a child, that means you're preparing to receive that child. Like, you're not waiting to make sure you have nothing, not even a pamper or a onesie, and you hoping everybody come through. But that's how we've been taught. Like, children are like a oopsie. Not all, but a good amount. If I say, raise your hand right now, how many children was a oopsie, and then say, well, was you a oopsie? You go ask your mom and your daddy, you might get a surprising response. And so we have to begin to change these conversations. Ima Sarah was looking for a child, disappointed when there was no child. You see, and it has changed. Rivka was looking for a child. Raquel was looking for a child because they were in spaces and situations that prepared that the next step was, now I'm supposed to be fruitful. That's not what we're doing. We're looking for a good time, a Netflix and chill. We're looking for, to alleviate certain stresses that we have, and all we're doing is turning around and causing more stress. And then this is where you get into situations where now she has to choose between the man and welfare. And just to say, there are a number of men also who have to appeal to the system for welfare as well. So, oftentimes women get, the women is on welfare, but there are a number of men increasingly who have to appeal to welfare for food benefits and things of that nature so that they can sustain. And so we got to be real about this conversation. Brother Sal, is anybody there? If not, I'm going to check on Brother Mercy, and then we're going to come around for closing thoughts.
Actually, we do have another social media question. And again, if you have any questions or comments live, you know that number by now. And press number 1, it will add you in. Let me read this question for you. It says, when a woman resorts to getting on welfare, when that man finds out, does her actions indirectly enable a man to not do his manly duties?
Interesting question. Read it again for me one time more, Brother Sal. I'm a little bit slow on the comeback.
All right, here we go. It says, when a woman resorts to getting on welfare, when the man finds out, does her actions indirectly enable a man to not do his manly duties? I guess, indirectly.
I would say, and then I'm going to pass the mic, but that's one scenario that would have certain variables, like he didn't know, because there's a thing between, okay, I need you to go do your manly duties, and then my dad feel hungry. Like, the children are hungry today. So if it's an emergency situation, because they have stuff like that, like emergency situation, it really depends. Because for him to wait to get the light bulb on, that could mean a whole lot of things. Now, did she have the conversation? Because you have some men who tell the woman to go do it. You have some who tell them to say, you don't know where the daddy at. And that's definitely another scenario. But I would say that if it's an emergency situation and that's what she needs to do, then that's what she needs to do. But if it's an ongoing and now that has become her plan of sustaining, then that's another story. Now that's enabling. I would say it depends on the length of time that she's in that space and whether or not she's now, what's the conversation between the two. I relinquish the mic, Sister Maya, your thoughts?
Hello?
Go ahead.
Can I be heard?
All
right.
Yeah, you want to hear.
Well, I would have to say, I would respond this way because, like Malaka, I come from a two-parent household. My father met and married my mother and then had us. And he had several jobs. He worked whatever needed to be worked. He had his 9 to 5 and then he had a skill. So he had a big sign on the yard that said that, advertised his skill, and he took in additional work, and he took odds in his jobs. So to the question of does it directly or indirectly or by implication enable the man, it depends on that man. Because if the man has it in him to say, that's not okay that you're getting assistance from anywhere other than me, then if he already believes that he's looking for a way out, that if a way out is presented to him, then yeah, you've enabled him. But if he's a man that has built part of his masculine identity on his ability to provide for his home and his family, then nothing she does is going to make him do anything else. He's going to rise to the level that is necessary. But again, I think that the problem here in some cases is that we're talking to, like in the case of myself, Malaka, and Muna, we had our fathers, so we had that to look at. So when we look at other men, we don't. I know for me, I don't understand a lot of the time, or I can't very easily give passes to this idea of the world is against me and there's nothing I can do, because I'm so accustomed to men that made a way from the same circumstances. And not, my father passed away having never, owned his own business, but he died without debt. He died. He never bought anything. He never shook a can for nobody, and we never went without. Even if like my mother did the same. If we didn't have, we as children didn't know, because we ate what was there and we were grateful. We were taught to be grateful. So I think that a lot of this is going to be predicated on the value system of the men, whether or not they're going to seize an opportunity to do nothing, or if they're going to be inspired to say it's not okay that my wife and my children, or my woman and my children, are being provided for by anyone other than me. Because my pride, my integrity, my sense of dignity won't allow it. That's my contribution to that.
Thank you for that, Sister Maya. And you brought up some, again, like I said, it's all perspective, and I would have to agree that, coming from that space of being a father who worked godless, and tired, my father roof. So as you said, it really depends also on the woman as well as the man, whether they saw that or they didn't see that, and how it translated to them. You know what I mean? And so I would definitely have to agree with that I didn't see that growing. I saw do what you needed to do. You know what I'm saying? And some people have that mentality. And for those who don't, this is why these conversations are important, so that we can exchange these experiences and come to a space where it's not necessarily, like Sister Malaka said earlier, I'm judging you or you're judging me. We couldn't help where we're coming from, but we can definitely help where we're going. And so with that, I'm going to check on Brother Mercy, see if he want to chip in on that question. If you heard the question, Brother Mercy, you can go ahead and do so at this time.
Okay, what was the question again?
Brother Sal, come on.
Yeah, let me read it to you again. It says, when a woman resorts to getting on welfare, when that man finds out, does her actions indirectly enable a man to not do his manly duties?
It's just amazing how these questions come up for me. It's always about a man trying to get out of his responsibilities. That's why I hear in that question. So if I do this, that's going to keep him from doing what he's supposed to do. No, it doesn't. All that means is that, like somebody else pointed out, is that if you have to have what's called an adjustment of income, which means you may receive less welfare. That's all that means. If you have additional income, you just have to report that, and you may get less support. That's all that is. But again, if you was an honest person, again, we're dealing with honesty now. If you're truly, truly who you say you are, you should be able to do honest business, But then again, that depends on whether or not you're honest, So if the guy's honest, speaking of the guy, if the guy's not, that depends on who you're dealing with. If the guy's not honest, he's just trying to get out of it. If he has that inside of him, then if he has that already inside of him, then it really doesn't matter what you do. He's always going to try to find a way out of not doing what he's supposed to do. And I think sometimes it's hard for people to understand if a man has something internal where he's determined, he's trying to get out of his responsibility, he's going to try to find every little excuse to try to get out of his responsibility. What I've heard from the ladies, though, is that, you can make it comfortable, which is good. I think that's an excellent idea. You can make it comfortable. You can support him and not try to emasculate him, show love towards him. I think what the sister stated was excellent, non-judgmental. All those things are great. But I still hear something coming from the men working for Esau, a 9 to 5. See, it's that really ticks Brother Mercy off, because I don't hear work ethic in that. I don't hear I'm trying my best and I'm falling short. I don't hear that from the men. I hear from the men, I don't want to work for that white man. I don't hear from the men, I've done my best and my best ain't good enough. Because I've been in situations where my best was just not good enough. And sometimes you reach that, but I had to keep trying and keep trying over and over and over again. Then I was able to overcome. And I think that's what I may have to do. They have to mature to the state where they overcome the situation that they're in. And then, I still say, I'm so proud of our ladies on this telephone, because they've been nothing but loving. They haven't been, I haven't heard the adversarial side. I haven't heard, oh, man, ain't no good. I haven't heard none of that tonight. So I thought that was pretty nice. So I think that's our first start, though, because I hear the other side sometimes. Man, ain't no. And the crazy part about it is ladies tell me this stuff, and I'm like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, so why am I hearing all this stuff? So all I'm saying is, look, I like the good attitude. That's the start. I think we need to say the bad attitude for the ones they belong to, So so I'm glad we're having this discussion. I think if you love the guy, I think you should have a good attitude. I think you should be supportive. You should be careful as a woman what you say. That is so important, because men, I don't care what a man tell you, he really cares about what his woman says about him. He really cares about it. A lot of men won't admit that. But and they'll never tell you that. But they really care about what their woman says. So as ladies, you got to be careful what you say about your man, because men take it to heart a lot of times. They'll never let you know that. So I think that's important. And go with the loving attitude, the non-emasculating attitude, and that's so great. And I think the men ain't no good attitude. All men ain't but dogs. I think we can get that up. And men ain't nothing. All that needs to stop. All that negativity needs to stop from our ladies. So, but at the same time, we men need to step up so they won't have nothing to say. And I tell them all the time. I say, if we stop messing up, they won't have nothing to complain about. That's just my opinion. But then again, no one listens. So I say this. I think we just need to try a little harder and love each other a little better. And maybe the guy you're with might not be the right one. I know that's hard to swallow. But, I mean, if you done done everything you're supposed to do, this kid still don't want to work, I mean, I don't know what to say. But as ladies, we just need to be supportive. You guys need to be supportive. Men need to work a little harder. And I think we need to love each other more. And I think women are better at loving than men are. And men just need to love a little harder for our ladies. And if we love our ladies, we will go to work. For Esau, for anybody. That's something else. Now, that same dude that complained over Esau, that he'll play football for Esau, he'll play basketball for Esau. I guarantee you he'll go out there and sell drugs for Esau. But then when it comes 9 to 5, he won't do that. But when it comes basketball, football, anything he likes to do, he'll do it for Esau. But if it's something he don't like to do, he won't do it. Because we work for Esau all the time. So I just say that we need to come with our own, but I think that we could do a better job, and I'm proud of this discussion. I think we can go further. So that's all Brother Mercy had to say.
All right. Thank you. That was the voice of Brother Mercy dropping jewels. Ladies, I hope you, like Brother Sal said, you got your pen and your pad. He's dropping jewels. Sometimes women just keep dropping, words until she finds out which one hits. When she gets that reaction, that's how she knows he cares. So it's this whole conversation and the different ways in which we converse, not trying to let the next one know how you really feel because blah, blah, blah. And as Brother Mercy said, we have to restore a level of love in the relationships, honesty in the relationships, so that these children that are coming from these unions can fare better in this very, very crazy world. I wanted to say the next thing that he said is this maturity. And I think Sister touched on it as well, is this advocating for later maturity. You're 35 and you're still doing stuff that 20-year-old, that's not cool no more. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're going to need to go ahead and grow up. All of us need to grow up. And then I'll pass the mic I know we're running out of time, but I saw this crazy YouTube video. or Facebook, social media, something. And I have to mention it because it goes with this conversation. It was a man trying to shame his woman for getting a manicure and pedicure with the last like $17 or something like that in the account. So he's like, he jumped into the Chinese shop. He's like, I caught you. How could you? And he's doing all this stuff for, social media response. And I'm sitting here looking at the situation, and and then she said, can you stop? You're embarrassing me. He's following her around. And then she finally turns to him and says, why don't you get a job? Why don't you get off the couch? And I'm like, there it go, the Book of Sirach. It could never say it's 30 wrong. She's saying to you that basically that's not my responsibility, because you're here and you should be doing your job. And so when she's in the space, and I'm not saying that her actions were right or wrong, we're talking about the nature of people who are moving around unawares, and while he's trying to shame her, he's exposing himself. And I think that kind of goes into this conversation that a lot of spaces, men and women, but a lot of men in this day and age are shaming melanated women on social media with these memes and these videos and everything else, and you're not understanding that the more you expose her is the more you expose yourself. So, yeah, let's go ahead and let that marinate. But we have a short time to go ahead and wrap up, so I'm going to throw it to Sister Mayana. I don't know if we're going to get cut off on Blog Talk, so we're going to do it nice and easy here. I want to thank Sister Malaka for coming in, Sister Mayana as always, and I just want to say thank you to Brother Mercy for chiming in, and wherever Akwese and Brother Awar is, shout out to you as well. And so we're just going to go around really quickly as we close this up. Sister Mayana, Sister Malaka, and Brother Mercy.
In closing, I want just to very quickly revisit the fact of some of the language that we use. That Imuna pointed to very quickly about the Moynihan Report is where we get this idea of the matriarchy. It's Ronald Reagan where we get this idea of the welfare queen, and we have adopted this language, and we have recycled this language, and we have branded one another with this kind of negative stereotyping. And this is not even a mentality that came from us. It's something you say, like Brother Mercer said, you don't want to work for Esau, but you will repeat his rhetoric. And we need to be very careful about that, because by adopting that, we're not allowing ourselves to come out of the rut that they are giving language to, and they are creating stereotypes for. So, in conclusion, let's be very mindful of where we are and what we say and what we can do and what is real, and be very honest about where we are and what we can do. And with that, I say good night and shalom to everyone.
Thank you for that, Sister Mariana. Sister Malaka, the mic. Sister Malaka, are you there?
You said I'm next?
Yeah, actually, they called us drop. I called this drop. And, once we know overtime part of the show, you know how that go. Can't even call back.
Yeah.
Before we get cut off.
Go ahead and wrap up your thoughts.
Okay, I was going to say, this is a great show tonight, and I really want to thank all the ladies that came on the show, because you guys have been very supportive of this whole thing. I haven't heard you guys say anything negative about men, overly negative, and I just like to appreciate that, because our men need to do a better job. At the same time, as far as on the show, I think if women did more of that could help the situation a little bit too. But, I'm not letting our men off the hook. I'm just saying that helps having a good attitude and saying good things about our men and building them up, because women are so important to men, and we don't really appreciate you guys as much as we should, but you guys are so important to us. And so I just wanted to say, that a lot of what we do is because of you guys. We're here because of you, because we come out the womb. So we wouldn't be here unless you were here first. So I say that to say, as a man, we love you guys. But a lot of us don't show it in the right way. Some of us just don't know how to love you guys. And so we do stupid stuff. So I say like to say, we men just need to learn how to love. We need to do a better job loving our ladies and love the right lady, because all ladies are not the right ones. And I think some men, we fall in that trap. We try to show love to the wrong one. So we got to show love to the right, to the one that Yahweh gives us, and I think we would do better overall. And that's all. Brother Mercy out.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you for Brother Mercy. Sorry about Sister Malaka's call dropping. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I was a little groggy coming to work today, but hey, it all worked out. Beautiful conversation, as everybody said. Thank all of the listeners, those who are going to listen on the replay. Thank you, Brother Sal. And I guess we'll see you on the other side of the summertime. So continue to enjoy yourself, elevate yourself, do what is right in the eyesight of the Creator. And peace out, Brother Sal. The mic is yours.
All right, of course, I want to thank everybody on the panel. Of course, the host of the Relationship Challenge, Amuna Israel. Of course, Mayana. And, of course, Water Swordsman. They couldn't call in at this time. But, of course, we're going to definitely get them quite there in the war when it comes to the new season, September 29th. That's the new season, September 29th. So we appreciate y'all. When you do these shows, you take a summer break. Sometimes, you don't realize how special some of these segments are until you come back to the plate, and you hear it again. You know what I mean? So I'm definitely looking forward to the next season of Relationship Challenge on Debate Talk Free Radio. Of course, I wonder what kind of topics we're going to come up with. But, definitely love the segment. And, of course, once again, I appreciate my sisters for creating this particular segment. Guys, we're going to see y'all tomorrow. We do have a debate lined up for you guys tomorrow. And for the rest of the week, we have shows. This is the last week for the summer special of Debate Talk for You, and we have an extra show actually next Monday, that the 31st. That's the final show. So this week and next Monday is going to be pretty much a wrap, and then we're going to go into the new season, Season 8. So see you guys next time. Take care, and God bless.
With free next-day delivery from Staples, you can run your business like a pro. You can guarantee the marketing department that they'll get their supplies tomorrow, and guarantee the accounting department that they'll be delivered free. With free next-day delivery, you'll have the ability to move deadlines up and adjust budgets down. Go to Staples.com and get the office essentials you need delivered next day for free. Staples. It's pro time. Orders over $49.99. Placed by 5 p.m. Excludes weekends and holidays. Eligible items only.